So the long-awaited moment is finally here. The UK Nursing and Midwifery Council has finally come up with their final decision about the English language requirement for overseas registered nurses and midwives. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the details of what the final decision is, when it's going to take place, and also address this controversy going on about this employment reference. If this is something you're interested in, do not go anywhere. Hopefully by the end of this video, all the doubts will be cleared so that you will finally know which way to go. Hello guys, you're welcome to my channel. This is the channel for overseas nurse. If you're interested in knowing anything about coming to the UK, either as a registered nurse, healthcare assistant, or if you want to know anything at all about the UK nursing midwifery registration process and all of that, this is the right channel for you. If you've not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing after watching this video, because I do share valuable content on this channel, which I strongly believe will be very beneficial. A couple of months ago, I did a video in which I explained what the UK Nursing and Midwifery Council was proposing as part of their English language requirements, the changes they were hoping to bring in so that it will allow more people or more registered nurses overseas to join the UK Nursing and Midwifery Register. So all of this boils down to the English language requirements. That is what they have realized most people are finding very challenging. Either the OET or the IELTS, people are really struggling. Most people do not really have a problem with the CBT. It's just the IELTS. In their previous publication, they were proposing 3 different strategies in which they could use to enable more overseas registered nurses join the register. One of the strategies they were considering was to exempt people who have had postgraduate study over here from writing the IELTS. That means if you had studied a master's program in the UK, maybe you would have been exempted. Another thing they were considering was as to whether to reduce the overall score. So another thing they were considering was also to accept employer reference. That means your employer could write a letter to back your NMC registration that you are trained in English, you communicate effectively in English and all of that, so that at least you will not need to write the IELTS. Since they made those proposals, they also did open a public forum. They didn't want to take that decision all by themselves, because they know that at the end of the day it's the overseas nurses that will be affected. So I think they wanted to give a lot of people the opportunity to have a say in this decision, so that it will not be like they have just decided on what they want to do without consulting people. So they opened a public forum where people were invited to share their ideas. So there was a form that people had to fill. I remember very well filling out one of those forms. So they just wanted to gather people's idea as to what changes they were also considering, or what people's thoughts were on what they were proposing. So together with what they were proposing and what the results of the public forum was going to be, the plan was for them to come out with their final decision on 28th of September. A registered nurse overseas watching me may not really understand what this whole thing is all about. So let me just give you a brief overview. For you to become a registered nurse in the UK NMC expects you to write an English exams, which will be like a proof of your English language proficiency, because obviously UK is mainly an English speaking country, so they just want to assess how effective you can communicate in English. So you need to write either OET, occupational English test, or IELTS. So I did IELTS, so it's easier for me to talk about the IELTS, pardon me for that. And I know that the score they were looking for was 777 in all the 4 models. So 7 in reading, 7 in speaking, listening and writing. Somewhere in 2017 or 2018 thereabout, most overseas nurses also raised concerns about this high standard of English language requirements, and there was a consultation again, and then they managed to reduce the score of the writing to 6.5. So currently, as it stands, it's 7 in all the models and 6.5 in writing. People are still struggling with the current UK NMC English language requirements. So that is how come this whole consultation came about, and now they've come up with their final decision. So I'm going to go into details what they have finally decided, what they have accepted and what they did not accept, so that at least you will know how to prepare if you are thinking of migrating to the UK or if you are already in the process. So let's talk about the ones that they did not accept, and then we go on to the ones that was accepted or what has been approved or considered. The overall score, which is at least 7, has not been changed. So if you were hoping that they will bring the overall score to 6.5, that is not happening because they are still maintaining the overall score at 7. And also the postgraduate qualification that they were hoping to consider to exempt people from writing the IELTS was also not considered. So that means even if you have a postgraduate qualification here in the UK, you still need to write the IELTS. So let's go on to what has been accepted and how people are going to benefit and how it's going to allow more people to register with the UK nursing and midwifery council. The first proposal they have accepted is that you can combine 2 results if they are 12 months apart. So the UK NMC allows you to combine 2 English language tests if, for instance, you are not able to pass for the first time. Initially, you would have to write the second one at least 6 months. So the interval between the first and the second exams that you are combining should at least be 6 months. With this current proposal that they have finally decided on 28th of September, you are allowed to combine 2 results if they are 12 months apart. So that means if for some reasons you write the first one and you are not able to get the required English language score, at least there is enough time for you to write it within the next 12 months. You will not be in a rush to prepare, study again, especially if you've got family, if you've got financial issues. This exam is very expensive, so having to raise that amount of money again to write in the next 6 months can sometimes be a bit challenging, especially if you are working at the same time. So at least giving us that 12 months gap at least gives you enough time to prepare. So at least that's in a way a good thing. Even within that 12 months, if you have to write over and over and over again, at least hopefully within that 12 months you would have been able to get 2 scores or 2 results that you can combine. The second proposal they have accepted is to allow applicants to use employer reference. So that means instead of writing the IELTS, your employer can write a letter to testify that indeed you communicate in English very well, you were trained in English and all of that. So this is where the controversy is all about, because on their website it wasn't really clear as to whether anybody trained in English outside the country can also use this or not. I was also confused because most African countries, we are trained in English in school. We are examined in English. We are taught in English. So if they are accepting employer reference, then anybody from any African country can say, yes, we were trained in English, so they can all bring in their employer reference for UK NMC to accept. So there was a bit of controversy as to whether this employer reference is for those who have already managed to enter UK or for anybody who is still outside the UK. So information from verified source from the UK NMC is that the employer reference is only for those who are currently in the UK. Number 1, it is for those who are currently in the UK. Number 2, even for those who are in UK, you should have at least worked in a healthcare setting for at least a year. So for instance, if you've managed to enter the country as maybe a healthcare assistant, a senior carer, but you are a registered nurse hoping to join the UK NMC register, and at least you've worked for a year, then you qualify to get a letter or the employer reference that the NMC is talking about. Then the second condition about the employer reference is for somebody who has narrowly missed the passing score. So I'll just read whatever is stated on their website about the employer reference so that you can have a better understanding for yourself. On their website, it says that for the employer reference, it will enable employers to provide supporting evidence of English language proficiency where an applicant has trained in a country where it is not a majority spoken language, or where an individual has narrowly missed the English language test. So what I've just read out to you is still about the employer reference that we are all confused about. So this is what was causing all the confusion, because it wasn't really clear and they did not really state which countries that they can accept the employer reference from. So the further inquiry from the verified source confirmed that it is not for everybody. It's for those who are here in the UK who have worked in a healthcare setting for at least a year and narrowly missed the passing score. So for instance, if you had like 6.5 instead of 7, it means you missed it narrowly just by 0.5. So for somebody like you, if you've managed to enter the country, you are working as a carer or as a healthcare assistant within the UK setting for at least a year, then you qualify to take the employer reference. I know a lot of people are stuck here in this country as healthcare assistants, as domiciliary workers, as senior carers. Meanwhile, they are registered nurses and they really wish to practice, Some people have passed CBT and all of that. It's just the IELTS that they are struggling with. It's just the OET they are struggling with. Some people have even managed to pass OSCE. So for people like this who have already entered the country, this is actually good news. If you've managed to work in that setting for 1 year, then you can take advantage of the employer reference. So that is the long and short of this employer reference that we are all confused about. So far, this is what the UK NMC is proposing, and all of these changes that they are talking about is going to take effect from January 2023. Although this decision may not favor everybody, but then I believe it will still go a long way to help. So if you are still on the path of trying to enter the UK as a registered nurse, do not give up at all on your dreams. There is definitely a way out, because this decision they've come up with is definitely going to allow a lot of people to register with the UK NMC. So just keep on pushing, do not give up at all, and I believe definitely you will also fulfill your dream of migrating to the UK to work as a registered nurse. I hope this video has been very useful, and I hope it has cleared all the doubts that you had about what the UK NMC is proposing. So if you found this useful, please share with others, because I believe people are still confused about what's going on, whether to go ahead with the employer reference and all of that. Please share this video to as many people as possible, and don't forget to subscribe and support the channel. See you in my next video. Bye bye.